Our story begins in ancient Korea, during the Goryeo Dynasty. We are introduced to our young protagonist, Bong, who is enjoying the lush green countryside. It is immediately clear that she possesses extraordinary and untamed martial arts skills. Climbing a tree, she watches a sword fighting match taking place in the city, completely mesmerized by the phenomenal performances of the duelists. This spectacle unfolds under the watchful eyes of the tyrannical ruler and the strongest swordsman of all time, Baik. Moved by a sudden surge of courage, Bong decides to join the fray, concealing the lower half of her face. However, she is barred from competing because she is not registered, and moreover, she is a woman. When the guards try to forcefully remove her, a stunning surprise awaits them. Bong takes them all down with absolute ease. Her prowess catches the attention of Baik, who, intrigued and surprised, orders the winning duelist to execute her. This opponent is on a completely different level from the regular guards, fighting with immense power and skill. Yet Bong rises to the challenge, parrying every single blow with indescribable mastery. As Baik focuses on her movements, memories of his life's true love, the legendary warrior Seol, flash before his eyes. The last time he saw Seol was years ago, when she held a sword to his throat, weeping, and warned him that one day Bong would return to kill both of them, for blood could only be washed away with blood. Snapping back to reality, Baik notices a striking resemblance between Bong and his long-lost love. He orders his guards to capture her, but through a clever trick, Bong manages to slip away. Meanwhile, we see Seol, his former lover, who is now blind. She is the one who raised and trained our protagonist. Hearing the townspeople gossip about the incredible fight that took place earlier that day, she grows worried that the mysterious girl might be Bong. She questions Chu, a young boy she is also raising, about Bong's whereabouts. At that moment, the legendary Baik intercepts Bong on her way back. Amused that she has no idea who he is, he asks why she spared her opponent's life during the fight. She nervously explains that she was merely looking for practice. When he demands her name, she panics and gives him the name of her younger brother, Chu. Determined to uncover the identity of her master, Baik puts on a mask and issues a challenge, stating that if she can remove it within 3 moves, he will acknowledge her as a true warrior. This wounds Bong's pride, and she attacks instantly. However, she cannot even graze him. With a single fluid motion, Baik strips the mask from her face. Frustrated, she launches consecutive attacks but fails repeatedly. Unbeknownst to her, Baik's main objective is to look for a specific scar on her back. Spotting it during the skirmish and taking a closer look at her features, he feels as though he is looking at his old flame, Seol. Caught in a momentary distraction, Bong manages to snatch the mask off his face, feeling a sense of triumph before running away. Back at their dwelling, the blind Master Seol sits with her assistant. She states that it is time to reveal the whole truth to Bong. Although the assistant argues that it is too early, Seol knows that since the girl has crossed paths with Baik, she must understand everything. When Bong returns, she repeatedly apologizes to Seol for fighting that day. She presents Baik's mask, hoping to make her proud. Despite her blindness, Seol touches the mask and feels Baik's name engraved upon it. Bong promises never to do it again. Seol then asks her why she thinks she has been training her all these years. Bong replies that it is because 2 people murdered her mother and father, and they must die by her hand, since blood can only be washed away with blood. Then, Seol delivers a crushing revelation, telling Bong that she has 2 enemies. The first is the man she met today and took that mask from, and the second is someone who has watched over her entire life. Bong demands to know their identities, swearing she will not hesitate to kill them. Seol reveals an ancient, legendary sword, one of the 3 greatest blades ever forged in history, and presents it to her as a gift. She begins to recount the past, explaining that long ago, Seol, Baik, and their third friend, Sun, were comrades in the resistance against a brutal colonial occupation. As the finest swordsmen in the world, they fought with one heart and managed to defeat overwhelming enemy forces. Seol and Baik were deeply in love. When Seol was once wounded, Baik held her and fought fiercely until his last breath, while Sun rushed in to provide crucial support. They successfully captured the enemy commander, marking a victory over tyranny and corruption. Sun later presented the people's demands to the ruling governor-general. The general mocked him, threw the petition into the fire, and forcibly brought out Sun's wife and infant daughter to force his surrender. In a legendary moment, Sun drew his sword, determined to execute the general's son. But then came the ultimate betrayal. Baik turned traitor, freeing the enemy commander. Before Sun could comprehend what was happening, Baik coldly stated that he had made his choice, that the three of them belonged in the halls of power, occupying the highest ranks. Sun utterly rejected this, asserting that he fought only for the people. Simultaneously, the general ordered the merciless slaughter of the remaining rebels with a barrage of arrows. Enraged, Sun attacked Baik, vowing never to forgive him. Seol stood by in tears, torn apart as her lover and lifelong friend fought to the death. Just as Sun gained the upper hand and was about to deal a fatal blow to Baik, Seol made her agonizing choice and plunged her sword into Sun's back, killing him. She collapsed to the ground, weeping in profound sorrow. As the soldiers prepared to execute Sun's wife and infant child, Baik, consumed by his lust for power, made the darkest decision of all. He struck down the wife, ending her life instantly, and dealt a savage, heavy blow to the infant's back. Hearing this, Bong is utterly paralyzed with shock. The horror deepens when Seol looks at her and confesses that she and Baik are the ones who murdered her mother and father, and that she must take her revenge on both of them. In complete denial and horror, Bong drops the sword. However, Seol deliberately provokes her, fueling the hatred in her heart and reminding her that they are enemies and nothing more. Seol ruthlessly expels her from the house, coldly stating that the next time they meet, one of them must die. The next day, Baik is consumed by thoughts of Bong, or rather, the memory of his lifelong love, Seol. He orders his men to track down the boy, Chu, eliminate him, and bring his mother to him unharmed. Despite her blindness, Seol's heightened senses detect the distant thunder of cavalry charging toward her home. Sensing the danger, young Chu attempts to shield his mother. Seol draws her blade, skillfully cutting down two of Baik's soldiers to protect the boy. A larger wave of soldiers swarms her, but Seol exhibits an otherworldly mastery, slaughtering them one by one in an elite display of martial arts. Not a single soldier can touch her. However, hearing Chu's terrified scream shatters her concentration. She loses her balance, revealing her blindness to the soldiers. Exploiting this vulnerability, they ruthlessly murder the innocent young boy. On the other side of the kingdom, Baik sits carrying the weight of the world's sorrow, reminiscing about how he and Seol were once two bodies with a single soul. His reverie is interrupted by the arrival of the emperor. Desperate to maintain his grip on power and secure further promotions, Baik offers his deepest respects. The emperor demands a demonstration of his legendary swordsmanship. Feeling insulted, as if he were a mere circus act, Baik channels his suppressed rage into the duel. He easily counters the blows of the guard chosen by the emperor. The emperor, thoroughly entertained, loudly declares to the guard that if he defeats Baik, he shall take his place as ruler. Infuriated by this, Baik delivers a single devastating strike that brings the man to the ground. When the guard madly attempts to rise and fight again, Baik delivers a unique, definitive strike that ends his life forever. The emperor's advisor watches in horror, realizing that Baik poses an existential threat to the entire empire. Meanwhile, a broken Bong sits weeping in the forest. She remembers her grueling training with Seol, who had treated her like a mother. She cannot reconcile the fact that she must now murder her to avenge her biological family. Her thoughts are cut short by a sudden predator attack, which she barely manages to survive and kill in a state of emotional collapse. Driven to despair, she goes to a local tavern, screaming for alcohol. The duelist she had previously humiliated in front of Baik happens to be there. Seeing her wretched state, he feels a deep sense of sympathy, buys her a drink, and tries to converse with her. Bong ignores him entirely, drinking until she loses consciousness. The young duelist gently carries her back to his home to rest. Upon waking, she briefly thanks him and quietly departs. At dawn, Seol visits the wise sage who had trained her, Baik and Sun, in their youth. The sage is deeply embittered, never imagining his three-star pupils would grow into such ruthless monsters. Seol requests that he pass Sun's sword to Bong when she arrives to claim her revenge. Angered, the sage leaves the sword with her and retreats to his sanctuary. Meanwhile, Baik moves into his magnificent new palace, its towering pillars reflecting his sky-high ambitions. He summons the young duelist who assisted Bong, promising him a coveted position in his personal guard and offering him the world on a silver platter. In exchange, he tasks him with assassinating the emperor's advisor, who had openly mocked him. The duelist infiltrates the advisor's palace, claiming he is there to plot Baik's assassination. However, the moment the advisor reveals himself, the duelist holds a dagger to his throat. Before he can strike, guards swarm the room. Dropping to the ground, the duelist quickly convinces the advisor that he has a flawless strategy to eliminate Baik permanently. The following day, the advisor proposes to the Imperial Council that, due to the chaos brewing in the Northern Kingdom, Baik and his elite troops should be dispatched to handle it, believing this will successfully rid them of him. Later, while walking with the Emperor amid a stream of flattery, The emperor suddenly coughs up blood and falls gravely ill. Baik visits the dying advisor, mockingly revealing that the duelist's dagger was laced with a slow-acting, agonizing poison, and that he holds the antidote just out of reach. Desperate, the advisor crawls across the floor toward salvation, only for Baik to callously smash the vial right before his eyes. Simultaneously, Baik's soldiers round up the carpenter who built his secret palace, throwing him, his daughter, and a small child into a pit to bury them alive, ensuring the palace's secrets die with them. Fortunately, Bong happens to pass by. Intervening at the final second, she defeats the soldiers and saves them. As she prepares to leave, the little girl follows her, and together they head to Seol's house. Bong is horrified to find the home completely ransacked. The assistant emerges, informing her of the attack that claimed young Chu's life. Remembering that she had used Chu's name with Baik, Bong is crushed by a wave of immense guilt, weeping over his corpse, utterly lost. With the advisor out of the way, Baik is officially elevated to Prime Minister of the Empire. Driven by vengeance, Bong sneaks into his palace. Alarms blare, alerting the guards, but the sympathetic young duelist miraculously appears and hides her. Refusing to tell him her motives, she slips away and reaches Baik's chambers. The moment she enters, Baik delivers a blow that knocks her unconscious. Sitting before her, he recognizes Seol's sword. When Bong awakens, she spits curses at him. Seeing the burning hatred in her eyes, especially when she declares that she is Bong and has come to avenge her family, Baik easily overpowers her. He mocks her skills and exposes the scar on her back once more. However, upon examining the scar, he realizes a shocking truth. It was not made by his blade. It was carved by Seol's sword. This girl is not Sun's daughter. She is the child born from the love between Seol and himself. When Bong tries to lunge at him again, Baik shocks everyone by driving Seol's sword straight through her. Coldly declaring that she is not Bong, he orders his men to dump her lifeless body into the river. Fortunately, the young duelist pulls her from the water just in time. At that moment, Seol arrives. Finding the girl unresponsive, she launches into a reckless, frenzied battle against the guards. The wise sage watches from afar and quickly seizes the opportunity to take Bong away and treat her wounds before she succumbs to death. Sensing this, Seol surrenders to the guards, instructing them to tell their master, Baik, that Seol has come to see him. Baik can hardly believe his eyes. Rushing to see his long-lost love, his heart swells with nostalgia. But Seol instantly cuts him down, explaining that she did not come to see him, but to die with him. Baik is deeply moved, especially upon realizing that she is blind, and orders his men to temporarily imprison her. Meanwhile, the wise sage uses all his medical expertise to nurse our young protagonist back to health. That night, Baik visits Seol, only to find her praying that their deaths come at the hands of Bong, viewing it as the only way to atone for murdering their loyal friend, Sun. Annoyed and heartbroken, Baik asks why she did not simply kill him and herself years ago to spare them this agony. With tears in his eyes, he tells her he knows she still loves him, just as he loves her. But Seol firmly replies that their sin is far greater than any love in existence. Baik then drops the ultimate truth, explaining that the girl who came to kill him is not Sun's daughter. He checked the scar on her back and confirmed it was made by Seol's sword, concluding that she must have taken the girl from an orphanage and raised her as Bong solely to exact revenge. To satisfy his massive ego and prove his absolute supremacy to Seol, Baik demands that the emperor grant him his daughter's hand in marriage and surrender the imperial palace. When the emperor curses him and mocks his audacity, Baik bares his fangs. He signals his men to surround and seal the palace. Terrified, the emperor watches as Baik openly belittles his right to rule, explicitly demanding the throne and declaring himself the true master. Amid the emperor's sheer terror, Baik signals his men to reopen the gates, kneeling mockingly as the submissive ministers enter to officially announce the royal marriage. On the other side of the kingdom, our young protagonist has fully recovered, though her heart remains shrouded in darkness. Seeing this, the wise sage decides to train her just as he once trained the legendary trio. He subjects her to grueling, brutal training regimens, pushing her skills to their absolute limit so she can stand against the tyrant Baik. Her progression is astonishingly rapid. Meanwhile, Baik realizes something terrifying as he reflects on Seol's profound sadness when he told her that the girl was not Sun's daughter. Simultaneously, the sage decides to reveal the final piece of the puzzle to Bong before she seeks her revenge. Through a flashback, we discover that years ago, Seol brought the corpse of the real infant Bong to the sage. In her absolute despair, Seol drank poison, which caused her blindness. The sage buried Sun's actual daughter with his own hands, meaning that the girl standing before him is actually the biological daughter of Seol and Baik. The realization hits our protagonist like a thunderbolt as she comprehends that the mother and father she has been raised to hate and kill are her actual biological parents. Seol had made the most harrowing choice any mother could make, raising her own child on a diet of pure hatred toward herself and Baik, hoping that the girl would wash away the sins they committed against Sun's family. Back at the palace, Baik confronts Seol with this horrifying realization, devastated that she could commit such a monstrous act against their own flesh and blood. In a fit of uncontrolled rage and agony, he slashes Seol's leg, tears streaming down his face. He wants to end her life, but he cannot bring himself to do it. Despite everything, he is still madly in love with her. For the first time, this ruthless tyrant collapses into a fit of weeping, shattered by Seol's final words as she promises to hate him until the final day of her life. Our young protagonist finds herself entirely lost in a maze of grief. Should she kill her parents to fulfill a tragic vow of atonement, or live knowing they are the accidental architects of her lifelong suffering? The next day, the forced wedding between the princess and Baik commences. Despite achieving the absolute pinnacle of his ambition, profound sorrow is etched across Baik's face. Having cut her hair short, Bong prepares to deliver the vengeance she was bred for. She storms the wedding celebration, a vessel of pure, unadulterated wrath. Sensing her arrival, Baik halts the festivities and steps out to face her. Bong cuts through the palace guards with unparalleled ferocity, her former innocence completely replaced by a devastating lust for destruction. When the young, sympathetic duelist tries to stand in her way, she nearly kills him, warning him that she owes him nothing and that he should step aside. She finally reaches the throne room, where her father, Baik, sits waiting. What follows is a ferociously brutal duel that spills out into the snowy streets of the city. Baik notices that her skills have evolved dramatically. Though he manages to wound her, she slices him in return, drawing blood. He commands her to pour all her rage into her blade if she wishes to defeat him, marking the first and final lesson from a father to his daughter. The battle reaches a fever pitch as both unleash their maximum combat potential. Baik completely locks away his emotions, attacking his own daughter with terrifying violence. Yet Bong manages to land a devastating stab to his back, severely hindering his movements. Then comes the most heartbreaking climax in cinematic history. The blind Seol arrives, dragging her heavily injured leg through the snow. Just as Baik is about to deliver a fatal, definitive strike to Bong, Seol throws herself between them, taking the blow meant for her daughter. Under a heavy blanket of falling snow, Seol rests her head on Baik's shoulder for the first time in decades. Baik completely shatters, weeping uncontrollably in absolute disbelief. Seol casts one final meaningful look toward her daughter, and Bong instantly understands what her mother wants. Amid a chorus of tears and utter devastation, Bong drives her blade through Seol's back, pushing it deep enough to pierce straight through Baik as well. In his final moments of life, Baik reaches up to touch his daughter's face for the first and last time. He places his hand over hers on the hilt of the sword, pressing it completely through both himself and Seol, bringing their tragic lives to a permanent end. The star-crossed lovers, Baik and Seol, pass away into the night, holding hands in a deeply moving and poetic image. They leave behind a daughter who must spend the rest of her days carrying a burden of guilt far too heavy for any human soul to bear. What are your thoughts on this tragic masterpiece? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next movie recap.